Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to the program, please take a minute now to subscribe to World Affairs in Context on Substack or Patreon for more and exclusive content. I would absolutely love to see you there. Just follow the links in the video description below to get connected. All right, let's talk about something that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention in recent weeks. Everyone saw the headlines in early January and mid-January, I believe. Dramatic raid, helicopters over Caracas, U.S. Special Forces dropping in, grabbing Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and Celia Flores, his wife, and flying them out to a U.S. warship sitting about 100 miles offshore. It was quick, precise, lasted under an hour, I believe. And so the Trump administration framed it as clean, efficient, decisive operation, a textbook operation. But here's the part that didn't make headlines. That quick raid was sitting on top of a military buildup that is now approaching a $3 billion price tag. That's right, $3 billion. So if you are a US taxpayer and you're wondering where your money is going, now you know. There is a ton of information of how US interventionism is actually funded with our US taxpayers' money. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I had a wonderful interview with Ryan McMacken of the Mises Institute, who described how US deficits are actually covered by US taxpayers and how the United States funds its foreign wars. Definitely watch that video next. It's a wonderful interview. It's actually one of my favorite ones. I will link it in the description below. You will learn so much from it, I promise. So let's break this down in plain English. The operation, reportedly called Operation Absolute Resolve, was just the tip of something much larger known as Southern Spear. And at its peak, nearly 20% of the United States Navy's surface fleet was tied up in the Caribbean. Think about that for a second. 1/5 of the America's surface fleet concentrated around Venezuela. That includes the crown jewel, the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the largest aircraft carrier in the entire world. This thing carries more than 4,000 personnel and dozens of combat aircraft. Just having the Ford and its strike group in the region cost an estimated $11.4 million per day. Not per month, not per week, per day. Then you add 2 amphibious ready groups, including the USS Iwo Jima, the USS Fort Lauderdale, and the USS San Antonio, plus the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, and that's another roughly 8.5 million per day. What about logistics ships? Another 1 million per day. So at its peak, you're looking at more than $20 million per day in operational costs. Now, administration officials have argued that this didn't cost extra because these ships and troops are already funded. And I have to tell you that as a CPA and a former auditor, I can tell you that excuse makes zero sense. Zero. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made the point that these forces are always deployed somewhere, so he says it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. If they're not in the Caribbean, he says, they're somewhere else. And technically that's true, but here's the catch. There is no contingency fund inside the Pentagon budget for unexpected operations. When deployments intensify, more flight hours, more fuel burned, more weapons used, more hazard pay, more family separation pay, those are incremental costs. Those are incremental expenses. And so they stack up, of course, and they exceed what was originally budgeted. Conflicts cost extra. That is the nature of how money works. There is no other way around it. According to Bloomberg reporting, former Pentagon controller Elaine McCusker estimates Southern Spear has cost about $2 billion since August of 2025, and that's just incremental operating costs. That doesn't include intelligence work, cyber operations, targeting prep, rehearsals. all the invisible infrastructure effectively that makes a raid possible. So while the raid itself may have lasted several hours, the financial footprint has been building quietly for months, and the US taxpayers are going to spend years and years paying for it. And here's where it gets strategically interesting. So military power is not infinite. When you concentrate 20% of your surface fleet in one region, you are making a strategic choice. You would agree with that, right? You're accepting trade-offs somewhere else. For example, Senator Jack Reed, the senior Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, called it a very expensive proposition. He also noted that lawmakers have not been given clear cost numbers, and we have to question why. Well, at the same time, reports indicate that the F-35s that were in the Puerto Rico region during the raid are now redeploying toward Europe and the Middle East. Forces are constantly being repositioned. It is a global shell game of assets, and every move has a price. That is my takeaway from this video. The broader question is this, however: what is the opportunity cost? As has been correctly pointed out previously, great powers don't just measure strength by how much force they can project, but by how many theaters they can manage simultaneously without strain. Bloomberg's analysis suggests that while much of this was actually funded with existing defense allocations, the speed of their appropriation exceeded what was planned for fiscal year 2026. So that means adjustments will have to be made from now on to the budget. Budgets reshuffled and more money appropriated is what we should expect moving forward. Nothing in geopolitics is free, and clearly conflicts are very, very expensive. It is absolutely clear that this was a massive mobilization for a kidnapping operation in Latin America. It was absolutely unnecessary, and it consumed billions of dollars. It was a month-long buildup that moved carriers, destroyers, amphibious groups, jets, drones, and logistics vessels into position, and it consumed over $20 million per day at its peak. And so when you zoom out, this appears to be more than just a raid, of course. It was a demonstration of overwhelming force, and that was the entire point. And demonstrations like that don't come cheap. So when President Trump threatens foreign nations again, it is important to understand that everything has a price tag, and you, the US taxpayers, will be stuck with the bill for years to come. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed and learned something new from this quick update. Support my work if you like this kind of content, if you want to see more of it. I appreciate every single one of you who has become a paid subscriber on YouTube, Substack, or Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye for now.